young love. We all sort of remember it. We all have good and bad memories of our earliest loves. That is a big theme of tonight's picture, which is going to be a mega review. There's just so much history on it that I'm going to have to separate this into two parts because we'll talk about the plot and my feelings of the overall picture in this part, and then the second part will be totally focused on the amazing history of this picture, which is A Place in the Sun, and it came out in 1951. It's a Paramount picture directed by George Stevens, and George Stevens would actually win Best Director in this picture. A Place in the Sun is based off the novel An American Tragedy, which was written by Theodore Dreiser, and it's interesting because we just watched Carrie, which was called My Sister Carrie, written by Theodore Dreiser, and there are some similarities between the two stories, focusing on the hardships of early 1900s, late 1800s American life, especially for women. This picture stars Montgomery Clift, Elizabeth Taylor, Shelley Winters, and also it has Raymond Burr, which we saw Raymond Burr quite recently in a picture in this channel. I'll start out by saying that a quote from George Stevens, he had this to say about how the overall feel he wanted to get. He said, quote, "I wanted to get the feeling of them," being Taylor and Montgomery Clift. I'll call them Monty because that's what they called them back then. "I wanted to get the feeling of them both being totally lost in each other." And I completely get that feeling from the two in this. It feels like they get so wrapped up in their young relationship, their youthful love relationship, that nothing else matters. She stops eating. She's depressed. I'm sure a lot of us have been through that. He thinks about killing, murder in order to be able to live his life with Elizabeth Taylor. Her character's name is Angela Vickers. His name is George Eastman. Great names. So you really do get that feeling of them just being totally lost and swallowed up by their love for each other. I'll also note that this movie is based on a true story that Theodore Dreiser would, when he was a journalist in New York, he actually followed this story in which I believe a pregnant woman fell into a lake, and there was a case of whether it was foul play or not. So anyway, I'm going to start out right from the get-go saying that this movie is a masterpiece. It truly is. It's a 4 stars out of 4 stars. Whether it's the music, which won Best Picture, Best Music, whether it's the acting, the cast is just phenomenal. I have to put so much emphasis on Shelley Winters because she was so fun to watch in this. She's also extremely annoying, but she plays the role perfectly and exactly how George Stevens wanted her to play it. And Montgomery Clift, interestingly enough, did not like how she played the role, but I'll get all into that when in part 2 of this review, because Stevens and Monty sort of butt heads over a lot of things during production. This film really does focus a lot on sort of the American dream in terms of Monty he grew up poor, and he grew up in a poor sort of evangelical family. Similarities between this and Carrie are that Carrie sort of had that young, poor, super religious lifestyle, but she wanted more out of life. She wanted the American dream, and she got a taste of that. Just as in this movie, George Eastman, poor religious family, he gets a little taste of the good life. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in this is when he goes to the Eastman household, whether it's for a party or the first time, and he witnesses the good life, the rich life, and he feels so out of place. It's almost awkward because we're like, this guy doesn't belong here. And I just love the contrast of George in this just sort of dream world, and he's just fascinated by it. You can see it in Montgomery Clift's eyes. He does an excellent job at that. And I really love the scenes in the start, because in the start, George, he comes to work for his rich uncle's business, which revolves around retail. And when he's working there, he starts from the bottom in a factory. And I love the scenes where we can sort of see he and Shelley Winters' character, Allie, I believe her name was Allie Tripp, and they just, flirting with their eyes and sort of that youthful love. And, then they bump into each other at the movie theater, which was really a cute scene. And also it's interesting seeing how the theaters looked back in 1950. But, and then he goes to a party hosted by his wealthy uncle, and he bumps into Angela Vickers, Elizabeth Taylor, and there's just instant chemistry between them. In fact, many people would always say that Monty and Liz Taylor they looked like siblings. They looked like he was the boy version of her and she was the girl version of him, which is really funny, but they had crazy chemistry. In fact, she was crazy for him off set, which I'll talk a lot about in the second part of this. But amazing chemistry. He's sort of that shy, awkward, mysterious bad boy. Not even really a bad boy, but and she's just intrigued by him because she's always used to the preppy boys. So the chemistry is fantastic between them. And then of course we've all, us guys, sort of have been in that situation where we're just crazy about a girl to where you will almost forget about all other girls. And I feel like that's the situation that Monty has here, because he's already just checking out on his relationship with Shelley Winters. And the director, George Stevens, did an excellent job at contrasting little things, such as we'll have a scene where it'll be Liz Taylor in just this beautiful white gown, looking gorgeous, and then it'll cut scene to Shelley Winters and just factory clothes and walking out to the mailbox crying. And he really nailed little things like that. The other scene I want to note is, of course, when Shelley Winters and Monty, their sex scene, where it's, of course, they couldn't really show much back then, but with the radio and the Congo drums and I love the drums throughout the whole film, sort of like Monty's heartbeat, because especially in the scene that no one will ever forget. In fact, I saw this years ago. The only scene I really remembered was the lake scene when he's out on the boat with Shelley and he's contemplating whether to drown her or not. That scene is just, will go down in movie history, honestly. It's one of the best scenes. But you can hear his heartbeat and his sweat, and just a fantastic scene in movie history. And also I'll note the scene where Shelley Winters is contemplating getting a abortion. They filmed it in a very subtle way. They had to be careful back then, and I'll go into that more when I read from her autobiography. She goes into great detail on that scene, but it's a very powerful scene that really shows us what life was like in the 1950s. I'll also note Raymond Burr's character. He's the district attorney in this movie, and the courtroom scene where Monty is on trial for the murder of Shelley Winters' character. There's a scene where he crashes an oar down, and I was just I was laughing because there's no way a district attorney could get away with that in a real court, because it would inflame the jury instantly. But Raymond Burr is excellent. I mean, of course, he's the best lawyer there is, right? Um, but you're truly, when towards the end, and spoiler alert, I feel like I'm not giving much away. Well, I feel like anyone who's watching this review has seen the film. Um, so when Monty is found guilty, when George is found guilty, and we see him in the prison, and he is sentenced to death, we see he has buzzed hair, and honestly, it really feels like you're seeing innocence die, because the whole film is just, of course, some people will see him as a total jerk because he wants to kill Shelley Winters and his baby, soon to be baby. But we know he didn't go through with it. But I actually sort of had the belief of he's the one who sort of led her to this situation. So there's a whole discussion you can go down to in the comments whether you think George was truly innocent or not. And I love that, because I had this discussion with family after seeing this. It's a great movie to just have a good talk about. But when he's buzzed hair, it's really sad, because earlier we saw him rising to the American dream, and with the girl of his dreams, he had it all, and he threw it away. And now he's just this buzzed haircut guy. Nothing, he's going to his death, walking to his death. It's just really sad seeing innocence die like that. And the last thing I'll talk about is just how over the top the love was between Elizabeth Taylor and Monty in this movie. Their characters, Eastman and Vickers, because honestly, when you think about it, it was pretty much based on physical attraction and her young love of, oh, he's so mysterious, he's has so many issues. And did they really have that many good conversations from what we saw? Or were they really no, it's honestly puppy love. It truly is. And which emphasizes the fact that this is just classic young love, and this is probably top 5 best young love pictures. Of course, there's been tons made these days, such as A Walk to Remember and The Notebook, but we don't talk about those films in this channel. This one is just amazing, and honestly, I think it truly could have won Best Picture. But we can all remember our own youth, and we can all remember our own first loves when we watch this, and just that feeling of totally being entranced, and just everything is about your girlfriend or your boyfriend. But like I said, this is a perfect film. Have it in your collection. Watch it every now and then. It's amazing, and I hope you all continue to watch part 2 with me. I have so many books, you can't even see all of them here. I have many books to get to about the history on this. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I see you in part 2.